Good evening, everybody. It's Ray Gibson, and tonight we have a special treat. We're gonna be going live. We're gonna be talking about the trans men in the media. There's gonna be 4 gentlemen that come into this live, and if you will, I'm going to be looking at this as well on my computer. So I'll wait for a little bit. Hey, hon, how you doing? I'll be waiting because I've got somebody in the background that's going to be watching these comments and making invites. Are you able to do that, man?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this live came from a post that I put into various groups, female to male groups on this platform. And because in the 2.5 years that I've been around, that I've been in my transition, and what I've noticed is that a lot of trans men are competing with each other. They're not necessarily uplifting each other. There's more so of a cliquish type atmosphere, depending on the depending on where you live in the United States, and that it's kind of like everybody's trying to reach a top dog level and have a bunch of followers. So I thought I would break that chain. I thought I would break the cycle of competition. Hello, everybody. To these gentlemen reached out to me, or I found them in that post that I made in groups. So I don't know very much about them. You're going to learn about them tonight. I hope that they join this live. Yeah, you guys better come on in here. It's time to go. And I have done a live with a group of transgender women, black transgender women. And right before I was asked to do that, I had thought of this. So all this stuff was going on at the same time. And I reached out to trans men to ask them where they are. I did mention the word stealth, but I wasn't intending to have a discussion about whether people were stealth or not, whether trans men were stealth or not. Because on this platform, nobody is stealth. So why don't we get together and talk about some important topics together on this platform, which would just eliminate and smash this stealth business. Because again, they're all over the United States. The 3 other gentlemen that are going to be in this live, they will be talking one at a time about this topic, and I will be interacting with them. If my cohort, who is watching this here with me, sees that there is a question or concern or whatever that warrants a response from us, we may or may not do that just for the sake of time. I'm going to let them have the floor when they're talking. I'm not going to try to interrupt them to make my voice louder than theirs. We all have a voice. We all need to raise our voices in this community in order for us to stop being in the background of transgender women. They seem to be the ones that are doing live productions all over this platform, on other platforms, and trans men are just sitting in the wakes. They're not, we don't have the same resources that trans women have, because they seem to have got themselves, before they transitioned, they were heavily involved in getting government funding from HIV projects, from projects that came out of the gay male community. So they brought all of that socialization, if you will, with them, so that they're in the forefront, it seems, of everything. And so this is my pioneer attempt to put us in the forefront, to give us a space to talk together, not individually on a timeline, not an individual life that's all about me, 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 me. Not to create something unified on this platform. And then, you know what, if this goes well, I will do other lives with other trans men. Because we really do need to step out of the shadows if we want to get resources. If we want to get the same kinds of resources, perhaps, which are different. You know, trans women's lives are different than trans men's lives. But if we want resources, we're going to have to speak up about it and unify together. Not try to make it a competition, but to make it something that, we're all a part of nationally, all over this country, and perhaps other countries. But for now, lives like this will be centered out of the United States because of the time zone differences in other countries, especially Africa. I talk with a lot of men and women, transgender men and women in other countries. But the time zones is like 6-hour difference out there. So, right now, a lot of my brothers and sisters out there won't even see this live until after it happens. Because it's like, 1 o'clock in the morning out there or whatever, so they're probably asleep. But I'll make it work. We'll make it work. And yeah, like that. You can be stealth, but you'll have a group of friends that are following you around on this platform who can also watch you talk about important topics to trans men. And one of those topics is that we're not represented enough in the media in the United States. Not, and starting with this platform is where it's going to start for me. The movement is going to start for me here. You don't see very many trans men in mass media. You don't see trans men on TV. You'll see one here and there. Just think about, hey, they got a show called Star. Does anybody know about that show, Star, that's on after Empire? They've got a trans woman that is part of that show every week. I don't see any shows on TV that have trans men featured every week. Hold on just a second, guys. So, we're not in the movies. We're just not on the map when it with regards to doing something together, to make ourselves visible, to make the community take us more seriously as far as being part of the community. They taking trans women seriously all over the place. Trans women run almost every resource in the country when it comes to us. So, closed mouths don't get fed. Squeaky wheels. I'm a squeaky wheel. Most people on this platform know that. They know I'm not afraid to, say what's on my mind and ask for resources, even though I haven't gotten much of that. I'm also a veteran. of the United States Air Force, and as most people know, the government is got a big clapback going on towards transgender people, and we're just getting thrown under the bus, not only by other transgender people, but also by the LGBTQ plus communities and the cisgender, heterosexual, left and right wings in this country. We are thrown under the bus. We lose our jobs first. We don't get resources because of who we are. We let it be known who we are, and all of a sudden doors close. Well, guess what? We're going to open those doors together. If I have to do this kind of a live every month, I'll do that. Just so that this country knows that we are on the map and that we want to be on the map. And we're willing to stick out just a little bit on this platform, because can't nobody go knocking on anybody's door from this platform, and make our voices heard. And what we think is important. I think being stealth is problematic, but I also understand the safety issue that many of them say is the reason that they're stealth. At the same time, I do not believe that if one lives their life and tries to pretend that they're cisgender everywhere that they go, and that they have nothing whatsoever to do with the transgender community, they're not going to get resources either unless they have money, unless they have access to money, unless they have access to the kind of insurance that gets them surgeries, binders, packers, all that kind of thing that we need as transgender men, is what we need. And we need to speak up, and we need to be a little bit louder in this country. So I'm going to look for the first guy that's going to come in here, and I'm probably going to interact with him. Hi, everybody. So let me look for him. Or actually, let me just invite him. Oops, wrong button. Bear with me while I find this guy. You remember who I was talking about in Dobby? Can you see him in the green that he came in? If you scroll through. Hello everybody. Welcome on in. I'm looking for a particular person, a particular trans man. No. Yes, he is. There he is. Okay, I'm going to send you an invite, man. If I can get to you. Jeez. Oh, Lordy have mercy. You'll have to bear with me, because this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. I did do a test run, but it's not exactly looking like it did when I did the test run about 2 weeks ago, as far as inviting people into this live. Much love, everybody.
Oh, he's at the bottom. He just did a thumbs up.
He just did a thumbs up? Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can get you, man. Sir, you'll have to look for that invite I just sent you in order to be pulled in here. Let's do this thing together, gentlemen.
Hi.
There he is. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man, because I can't say your name to save my life.
Yeah, you know, I get that a lot, so it's really okay. Well, of course, my Facebook username is Ndambi Zaire, but my first name is actually Nayahari, and my last name is Suhalia. And I am I'm joining you out of Charlotte, North Carolina at the particular moment. So um,
Cool.
thanks for having me. Like I was really excited. Like I'm wearing my pride shirt that says transgender on it also. So
Let's see it.
I'm,
All
yeah,
right.
this is, isn't that cool? So
Yeah, that is
this is
cool.
one
I
of my
like
favorite
that.
shirts. So yeah, I'm really,
That's
really
great, man.
excited. Yes, indeed. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can everybody else hear him?
I hope so. But
So, what do you and I had a conversation? Everybody on these that's going to be in this live, I've had a conversation with about this issue of trans men in the media. What say you, man?
um, it's really kind of a slippery slope. I think that a good portion of the time when you do see trans men in the media, if it's visual media, it's usually usually in the form of a documentary. And not to
Hmm.
downplay documentaries, I actually love them because they have a chance to educate and they provide firsthand accounts of people who are living this life. So I don't want to discredit documentaries at all. But let's face it, not too many people really watch a lot of documentaries simply because of lack of funding for promotion and things of that nature. So
Absolutely. It's
unless
very
you run
expensive
in certain, yes, yeah, producing a documentary of any kind, first of all, costs a lot of money,
and a lot of time.
and a lot of time. I remember when the documentary The Aggressives came out, now, which is not necessarily a trans documentary, but it did feature someone who has since transitioned, and that's Marquise Vilson. Now, he did
Okay.
that documentary before he transitioned, but even in that documentary, he said, at the time, he was like, basically, I'm a trans man because everything about me is, pretty much male. And it was a very interesting documentary, but I'm making that point to make this. That took 5 years to create. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And so later on, years later, Marquise has since transitioned and he's living his best life. And he is now an actor, and he's been on a few shows, but nothing that, as far as I know, has been recurring. Which goes back
Right.
to you say that we have some trans men every now and again, but no one in a recurring role as far as trans men, and especially as trans men of color. Black
Yes.
trans men, definitely. So even though his appearances have been sporadic, um, they're still important. They're still very much important. Him, Lafe Ashley is another one. Um, you
Yeah.
know, their their uh,
Are you?
their their appearances are very important, and so I definitely want to acknowledge and give uh, reverence to that, and and so I just I just want to acknowledge that. As far as other forms of media, that's where it does get tricky. You may see it every now and again in print media, as far as essays and journals and things of that nature. But again,
Have you seen any books?
uh,
I haven't.
no, not really. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means they haven't come across my my path. So I don't want to be absolute and
Yeah,
say,
I
oh,
hear you.
there's no books by, because we don't know that. We don't know that, and so I don't like to speak on things like that if I'm not for sure. What I will say is that, to my knowledge, I have not seen any. But
Yeah.
unless you're a part of certain circles, again, you don't really read or get a chance to see those, like you would with our sisters, and because you're
I've
right,
seen quite a
they
few of
have
them.
quite a
I'm
bit.
reading Janet
Well,
book.
right, and usually when people think, you know, black trans woman in media or who has some sort of visibility, the first person we go to is Janet Mock. The second would be, at this point, Laverne Cox, Isis King, um, so on and so forth. The names just kind of escape me at the moment. And I just want to also go on record, much love and respect to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're doing what they need to
Oh,
do, to take care of the community and their craft. And I'm always down, for that. So, they have my complete and full support. But as far as, um, us, it's a little more difficult, because we travel in these circles, but those circles are usually local, and then they're not very interactive.
exactly.
Like
Exactly.
you have the Black Trans, conference that goes on in Houston, which is awesome.
Hmm.
However, again, if you don't know about it and you can't get to Houston or anything like that for,
It's Dallas.
oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I stand
It's
corrected. It's
okay.
Dallas. But if you can't get to, if you can't get to that in order to, sort of do that networking and whatnot,
Exactly.
and then it's kind of moot. But
Yeah.
I would like to try, to find, how do we change that narrative? How do we gain more visibility for ourselves? Because even within the trans community, there are these other sort of subsectors within that
Yeah.
who all deserve representation and um, who should all have a seat at the table, basically.
Yeah.
Um, take I guess I'll have to use myself as an example, even though, uh, I'm not really a big spotlight type person, which is really contradictory to, a lot of the work that I do. But, you have me. I'm non-medically transitioning, um, and, obviously I don't pass worth a damn. And
Who
for
cares? I don't care.
no,
You're a
no,
man to me.
not, I don't care, but you're a minority in that frame of thinking. So, there's the thing. So a lot of men who are like me, they don't, they 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 kind of have their narrative sort of downplayed or erased, right?
Yeah. I've seen it.
And not
I've seen it
validated.
done.
Yeah, they're sort of
That's why
invalidated.
I
So I
brought you
think
here.
that, well, thank you. And I think that, things like this are really great ways to, if we can't, get a seat at the table, then we build our own damn table, which is how it's always sort
Here's
of
the
been
table.
for black. I mean, that's how it's always been for black people, as it is anyway, right? We've always had
Yeah.
to sort of build our own tables, and so, with black trans men in particular, um, black trans men who don't necessarily fit the narrative, who are, maybe not as masculine presenting, those who have made the decision not to or cannot, for health reasons, medically transition. Um,
Yeah.
all of those stories are really, really valid. So I would love to, know how do we, how do we then begin to build that table so that, those stories can be seen, can be heard, can be read and respected,
So
at the very
yeah,
least.
I
Yeah.
plan to take these lives onto another platform because this one eliminated a way to save, to own our own lives,
Mm,
download them onto our computer, and send them to media outlets if we wanted to.
mm,
They've eliminated that on this platform. So this is just a start. This is just a start to bring men to the table who I don't even know. We don't hang out. I don't know them personally, but just to eliminate all the stigmas associated with being trans men and say everybody's got a voice. The only people that I'm not going to be in cahoots with in lives like this are ones that I call glory hogs, that are just trying to get popular for themselves on this platform, to increase their clique or their followers. That needs to be eliminated. We all need to work together, not follow the leader and somebody dictates who that leader is. You know,
mm-hmm,
um, to me, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. I am here to grow leaders. I am a leader and I'm here to grow leaders. I'm not here to be a leader that's got a bunch of followers so that I can tell everybody how great I am. I could care
mm-hmm,
less about that kind of. But
mm-hmm,
I see it go on all the time on this platform. That is
mm-hmm.
why I made this kind of a live where it wasn't all about me and it wasn't all about you. It's all about us.
And that's good. I mean, to leave it interactive because I think the only way we can really sort of be able to build and move forward is through true dialogue. Whether we agree or disagree, hopefully we can both, you know, walk away from the conversation or walk away from the table having learned something that could be of benefit to us and be able to put differences aside and realize what is most important, which is again
Yeah.
making our stories visible, making them more heard, and once again, while I have much respect and love and support for my sisters. Um, I need to see more of us. I need to see more of me, even if I have to put, sort of myself on the chopping block in order to do that, to hopefully maybe inspire um, other people. But, it definitely would involve not just the people in front of the camera, but the trans men who are willing to tell the stories, who are willing to direct the stories and, you know, do the work to
Yeah.
make that possible. Um, and again, if it comes in the form of a documentary, okay, that would be awesome. But I think we can. It would take a lot of work, but to be willing to, and be able to expand beyond that, and not fall into the
Well, it doesn't
traps
have to
of.
be as big as that. This is a little mini documentary. It doesn't have to be as big as a full blown documentary because this could spawn off. We don't know who is watching this and who could be watching this and decide, I think I want to talk to that one. I think I want to talk to that one. I think I want to talk to that one and put together one. We don't know how far this can travel. So this is just a start in that direction. This is our little mini documentary. And if you wouldn't mind, I don't know if you would like to tell a little bit of your story, of how you came to understand uh, who you are.
Sure, I can do that. I think in this case, it would be very helpful. Um, So just sort of the abridged version, because it can get pretty long-winded. But I didn't really. I knew around teenage years that there was something else going on with me. I just couldn't name it. And of course, when you can't name something, you cannot, sort of give it space. And when you can't give it space, then it starts to fester. And so it led me to do a lot of, um, let's just say, not positive things in my teen years and in my young adulthood.
I think we all both
So,
in teen years.
yeah, right. Okay, right. Yeah, yeah. So, but once the thing that really turned it around for me, and this is just me being completely um, open and just, so if anybody requires a trigger warning, I'm sorry, I don't give them. But
Don't need it.
I, well, yeah, I was around the age of 26. I was very suicidal because it was just eating at me. I didn't know really where I fit. I knew that I wasn't a butch lesbian. I knew that, well, I just knew I wasn't, a lesbian, period. And it was a very torturous time. So I actually did attempt it. And there is no reason why, other than I was just meant to be here, why that attempt should not have been successful. Because instead of not waking up at all, I woke up very, very sick and with a headache. And that was a big
Wow.
thing for me. So, um, my elders were willing to work with me. And I give a lot of credit to my godmother who passed away last year. She took
Wow.
me into her house.
Sorry to hear
She
that.
took care of me. Thank you. She took me into her house. She took care of me. She she was the first one to really sort of name me before I even named myself. And I remember that day very well. I came out. I wore my first suit, and I was going out to an event. And I asked my godmother how I looked, and she was like, "All right, boyfriend." And I was like, "What?" So
She knew.
she was the first one. And so but it felt so
Don't you
natural when
love
she
that?
said it. Yeah, it felt so
Yeah.
natural when she said that. And so it really, led me down this path of sort of self-exploration that went on for like probably 10 years. Not too soon after that, I discovered and began to study the uh, Yoruba or Ifa spirituality. So that was a huge awakening, especially with the readings that would come up, and then me having to have my head shaved. And after I had
Hmm.
my head shaved, there was some voice that was sort of knocking, like, "Hey, you mind if I try this for a little bit? Let's just go with what I'm doing." And
All
after
right.
that, it just really sort of it really just sort of started coming together, sort of for me. But I didn't identify as trans right away. What happened is that for probably about 3 years, I identified as gender nonconforming or genderqueer. But I knew that, and this actually happened on Facebook. I said, the female pronouns, everybody, you got to stop doing it. And what was surprising to me was that a lot of people were just like, "You still use them?" So again, it was more like people who were naming me before I knew who I was, because I at that time I was like they and them and there, and still I was just like, okay, well, that really doesn't feel like me, but it seems to be gravitating more towards me. And I don't want to discredit anyone who is gender queer, gender nonconforming, and saying that it's like a gateway um, identity or identifier. But for me, that's my particular story. And then the aha moment, which is really non-eventful, which is why I love it so much. The
Mhm.
aha moment was uh, on my 36th birthday. Um, I
Okay.
was in San Juan, Puerto Rico for my 36th birthday. And I just looked in the mirror and I was just like, okay, let's try this on for size. And I was like, I'm transgender. Then I looked and I was like, yep, that's what it is. And I walked away.
That's great though. And boy, were
I
you in a
said,
nice place for that
yep,
to
that's
happen.
it. That's what it is. And everything about me just sort of, it felt so deep for me to say. And so I began to, sort of come out to friends on, more intimate levels. And so it was overwhelming support. It was, oh, we thought that that's what you were all this. You weren't? Oh, okay. So it was like a lot of, they were just like, well, do you, honey? So, it was just really, really interesting. But I'd say probably the most impactful, person that I came out to was my father. And I came out to him New Year's Day last year, as a matter of fact. And it was really, really hard. It was really, really difficult. And I was like, Daddy, I'm trans. And he was like, oh, child, please.
Oh no. Has he
I,
embraced it yet?
oh, dear God. No, when I say, oh, child, please, it was like, oh, child, please, as in, oh, child, please, you're telling me something that I don't already know. So,
Right.
he does consider himself to have three sons instead of two. My mother is the one who is, I've kind of had to um, just
He's taking longer.
yeah, pretty much. You know what I mean? But I know that my mother loves me. I just know that, that's something that she may or may not ever really be able to accept. But, you know, my mother is my one heart and true purpose. So I've had people be like, well, maybe you should tell your mom if she doesn't accept it, she can't be in your life anymore. I was just like, are you kidding me? I would die if my mother was not in my life anymore. I can't really, let go of that. And one of the reasons, besides health issues, that I actually am not medically transitioning is because my mother and I look exactly alike, and I actually like it. And I know that when I begin to medically transition, we will, for the most part, will lose sort of that connection. And I don't want to be honest. I love the fact that I look like my
You will
mother.
always be her baby,
Yes,
no
I will
matter what you are.
absolutely. Yeah, I am spoiled. I am a big brat
No
when it
matter how
comes to
you
my
look.
mother. Hmm.
Oh,
True.
you're funny.
Uh, yeah, but so that's that, and now I'm at a place in my life where people know I'm able to do work, um, justice work every now and as much as I can in my community. I live in a state where transgender rights, whew, it's kind we are the birthplace of the HB2 bill, the
Oh
bathroom
no.
bill.
Oh yeah, you're in North Carolina.
Yeah, that was in
Uh,
North Carolina. So yeah,
well,
that was a
you know
whole.
what? The bathroom issue is a national issue, actually. Even though it started there, it spread everywhere
Hmm.
very quickly.
Oh yeah, no. It absolutely did, and it was interesting. But they
See, the
wound up
weenie didn't
repealing
help.
that bill, right? Well, they repealed that bill, but they didn't repeal it because the justice was right and it's the right thing to do. They repealed it because it began hurting
No.
their bottom dollar. Once
Yes.
the NBA pulled out from having their All Star game here in
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte, and they instead had it
Mm-hmm.
um, in Los Angeles, and once PayPal rescinded on building their headquarters right here in Charlotte, and that was 400 jobs that kind of went squirrely. Um, yeah, they were like, "Whoo, we're losing money. Maybe we should get rid of this." And I'm just like, "Oh, so that's what it took. Okay." But
Yeah, well, they get rid of it
yeah,
there, then it crops up in Texas, and then it crops up in
right.
where was it, Mississippi? I mean, they're they're
Mm-hmm.
trying it everywhere to find a
Well,
way to
it's
drown
it's
this
it's the same.
bullshit into society.
It's the same monster with a different face. Basically, is how I like to
Exactly. Or a different city.
describe it. And so now that I'm at this space where, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I still get a lot of flack for identifying as trans, and I'm told that I'm not trans enough, and all that stuff. But I'm finally in a place in my life where that doesn't
Good evening. I
define
see
me.
all of y'all come.
Deep
Yeah.
Shadow. I love that name. Whoever has that name, Deep Shadow, I love that. Good evening. Um,
She's a
I
cool lady. I like.
yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
I imagine. I'm pretty. I'm
She's part
definitely
of the
sure about
girls next door
it.
where I
Okay.
met Shah. Hmm.
Oh, nice. Okay, awesome. Um, yeah. Now I'm at a place where I'm a lot more grounded in who I am. My spirituality has definitely helped me with that. Yoruba, the Orishas, Oludumare, they all helped me with that. The memory of my godmother definitely helps me with that. Uh, my elders, the trans kids that I work with, a lot of them are in high school and junior high and so on and so forth. You know, fighting for them, standing in front of them to sort of shield them from a lot of the crap that kind of gets thrown their way, more or less, by society, and taking those hits
Oh yeah,
myself
they're
because I
vulnerable.
can handle it.
They're
Yeah,
trying to
and
attack the
I
most vulnerable parts
right,
first.
and I take those hits because I can take it. I can sort of bounce back from that. For them, it's uh, a little bit more difficult
Oh
to
yeah,
be
a
able to
lot more
do that.
difficult because they got to
Right.
deal with their
So,
parents, their
and then there's
siblings,
their
and school
peers,
growing up.
teachers, and yeah, it can be very, very polarizing. And also, what really helps me is that, there's always this thing about, finding love in the trans community. And I am blessed to say that I've found it. I'm very, very much in love with someone who is just as we make.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We make quite an interesting pair because, I am a black trans, a non-medically trans man, so I have to come out all the time, every time, and they are a gender non-conforming, biracial Philippines individual, and we are in a long distance relationship at least for another year. I'm moving back home to LA to close that gap, and so having them in my life, and they are very, very fierce. They will correct someone in a minute. You know what I mean? They'll be like, somebody could misgender me, and they'll just continue to be like, well, he this, and he.
Yeah.
And I have to be really careful what I tell them because they'll be like, what? I'll be like, woo, calm down, time out. Listen, this happened to me, not you. Relax.
Hey,
Yeah,
but
they will.
women will do that too, which I
Well,
love.
they
I
don't
love a woman
identify
who would
as.
stick up for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let her go
They
on.
do not
I
identify
don't care. Let her go on.
as female, but yeah, but it's been a really great experience, and that's also been extremely extremely helpful in my journey. But most of all, just really me. You know what I mean? Because that's who it all comes back to. Because I am the one who's actually walking this path and putting myself out there more with my words, with my art, with whatever justice work I can do, and just being able to just speak um, to people and give them a different narrative, and hopefully someone out there can relate because they can resonate with it somehow, and we all reflect someone somewhere. So I know
Yeah.
that for me, I do, but that's not necessarily, again, it's not for the accolades or anything like that. It's really just for, we all need a voice for the voiceless, as Asada Shakur has said. And, and just continue to be able to be willing to put ourselves out there in various ways as much as, humanly possible. So I'm very, very grateful, even for all of the BS, that I've encountered on this journey. How beautiful it is that I can say I encounter BS on this journey, because that means I'm actually on it. And so, yeah, I'm just really
I hear
grateful. And,
you.
and that's my journey. It's still continuing. Um, but it's been liberating. It's been revolutionary. I always say my coming out has been the greatest form of self-care. Um, so I am
That's right.
doing my best to I'm doing my best to implement that every day, and I hope that everyone does the same wherever they are in their
Well,
journey.
in terms of trans men in the media, is there anything else you would like to say before we bring on the next gentleman?
Yeah, I do actually. Anyone who has that gift, or who has that calling, or who has that craft in the various mediums, I lovingly offer you to consider um, being willing to put yourself out there, because you can
Or
make a
bring us out there.
yeah, bring us out there, put yourselves out there. Let's collaborate. Let's build our own community. Like I said, if we can't get a seat at the table, let's build our own table, and we all have the
Well, here it
tools
is.
in order to be able to do that. So for those who again have that calling, that gift, that skill, um, let's pull together and see what we can do in order to be more visible and uh, be heard and be our own best representation. So that's that.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much for coming on this panel. I mean, I know it takes a lot of courage, and it took a lot of courage for the men that I approached to do something like this with me. And that, to me, this is just the beginning. That it's going to take courage, and it's going to take wanting to be visible and using your voice in order to make something like this happen and to keep going like a snowball effect. So thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for approaching me about it. Thank you so much for uh, having me, and just honoring me and validating me as I am, and I truly appreciate that. And I'm down. So if there's if you want to do this again, or something of the sort, I'm absolutely up for that. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing the other gentlemen come on and hearing their thoughts and whatnot. So I'm just going to get
You're
on off
very
here,
welcome.
but thank you. You have a good one.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
You too, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, there he goes. All right, everybody. Yeah, I didn't really tell my story of coming to understanding that I am a transgender, but I'm going to make it real brief. Um, I did not even know that this word existed in English until 2012. I was in my 50s, and it took me 3 years to embrace who I really am, because I was scared to death of society, just like I was when I thought I was a lesbian. I was scared of that too. So I did not embrace this, and my mother is no longer here, and I miss her a lot, because she would have been the one to embrace me over and beyond everybody. But now I've got some beautiful friends and some family members too that are on my corner. So I am looking for Shaw Hill. Can you give me a thumbs up, man? Or Caden? I think that was. Are you guys in here? If you'll just comment, I can bring you in. Jaden or Shah? The only way. Okay, hold on. Calling out Shah. Well, I'll just fill in the dead space then. Okay, Jaden, get in the live. Are you in the live, sir? I'm watching you over in this window over here. Are you actually in the live? Can you do a search for him? See if we can bring him in. Send an invite to him. Shah Hill, SHA space HILL. We're gonna try to. Okay, hold on. Okay, we're gonna have to bump you because Jaden's in here. So here we go, man. A little bit about you and follow the topic of the life. What's up? Hey, Jaden.
Hey,
How you doing?
hey, doing all right. How you doing?
Very well, thanks.
Cool.
So if you'll introduce yourself and tell us what intrigued you about coming live tonight, besides me asking you.
So I'm Jaden Fields. I'm in LA, so it's still like early afternoon, evening time here, so it's not that late. Um, and you asked me to be a part of this, and I was just interested in sharing my perspective, um, on just like trans men. Hello, someone said hola, Jaden. About trans men as well as just what I've noticed about black trans masculinity.
Go for it,
So yeah.
because definitely it needs to be talked about. That's for sure. In the well, specifically in the media, but there are other things about that we can have further conversations about. But we want to try to stick to the visibility of us in the media, or why we're not visible in the media.
Um, Honestly, I think there are a lot of reasons. I think more recently, just in general, trans men are getting more visibility. Um, but I think the kinds of trans men that get that visibility are usually white, are usually I think like especially with social media, they're usually really buff, medically transitioning, surgeries, and usually that's the conversation that they're having is around that. And there's not many men of color that get that kind of
Yeah.
platform, you know.
Yep.
And I think maybe I don't know. I feel like overall media is just more interested in like the physicality of trans men. Like there's still this something shocking about uh like wow you can't tell or whatever the kind of narrative that they for the ones that get that
Yeah.
platform.
I've gotten that. I got
um
that in a church. I went to a T Talks last year, and I was sitting behind a guy who the entire time he did not know I was a trans man. And when I spoke up for a little while, he turned around and said, "You're trans?" I'm like, I
mhm.
guess that's a compliment. I didn't really know how to take that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know what it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be a compliment, but it doesn't always feel that
Yeah.
way. um but I think unless that's what you're talking about, unless you look like the kind of cis men that get like leverage are usually white cis men. So same thing with trans men, they're just not trying to hear our
Yep.
stories.
They're
And I
not.
think black trans men, you know, also have different kinds of stories to tell, and they're just not trying to hear that.
Yeah. It's called fragility.
Um, yeah, definitely, definitely. I think there's limited there's limited examples that I can remember of like just seeing very visible black trans men that like have a at least a national platform. I think like Teak um, and what's his name?
Two,
I can't think of his name.
two,
Huh?
two trans men.
Yeah, I can't think of his name right now. He did that documentary.
Oh,
Um,
okay, I know who you're talking about. Nadami mentioned his name. But yeah, that's two compared to how many of us running around this country, you know?
exactly. Like there's a lot of us around. There's just those kinds of stories aren't being elevated because we're also talking about like being black and being black men and
And we don't have
less.
the
It seems like
money.
they're
We don't have the friends that
mhm,
have the money.
access.
We don't have,
The,
what I've noticed in this community is that the white trans men do not support the black trans men. But I see a lot of support going their way and not coming our.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. They're just not trying to. There's not the same kind of support um, that's necessary. They're just not. Those kinds of stories don't get the same kind of recognition. I think about that web series Brothers that like really took off about. It started off with just a group of white
Yep.
trans men or white passing trans men on YouTube, and it's like really taken off. And then I remember around the same time there was God, what is it called? I can't think of what it was called, but it was it had only black trans men and trans men of color, and the director's name was Seven.
Didn't you tell me about that one
I
there?
can't remember
What was it called?
King.
Garden of Eden.
Garden of Eden?
Yes, Garden of Eden. Um, yes, or Eden's Garden. Eden's
Eden's
Garden.
Garden. Yeah.
Eden's Garden. His name was Eden in the show. Um, and like that didn't get the same kind of. Thank
Yeah,
you.
somebody
Someone
said that.
put it. That one didn't get to. That didn't get the same kind of
Support.
following, didn't get the same kind of support, didn't get the same kind of anything, and it was pretty much doing the
Yeah.
same thing. It was a group of trans men of color, friends, a variety of sexualities, and just their, exploits as friends and trans
Yeah.
men, which is pretty much the same storyline as that other show, which got a lot of flack at first for not even including
Yeah.
people of color.
And then when
Um,
they're included or they do
and
their own thing, people tune out for some.
exactly, and so like there's just not the support, you know. They barely want to hear black trans
Yep,
women, so they're really not trying to hear
really not.
us.
You know what I think that has more to
Um,
do with what people define as maleness. I think they look at, well, for both of us, transgender women and transgender men, outsiders are thinking it's about our genitals. And if we don't have the genitals of the gender that we identify as, they're not taking us seriously. They don't want to hear it. And especially in the black communities. Holy cow. They seem to have more of a problem with us than the white communities do.
yeah, yeah, I think it's
Yeah, it's
complicated.
complicated.
It's
But this is a
complicated,
start. This
and
is a start that could lead to something
yeah,
big. I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go. I
yeah,
just knew I needed to do it. I needed to put
hmm
somebody besides myself on the map.
right, right. And I think it comes when it comes to the black community. I think there just isn't the same kind of exposure. I think when people see trans people, I think they're familiar more or less with trans women, usually from things like Jerry
Yeah,
Springer or like movies. And like there's more. There's Laverne Cox. There's Janet Mock. There's that show Pose coming out with all of those amazing actresses. And so there's a little bit more, and more people just are vaguely aware or really aware of trans
yeah.
women. And I think Caitlyn people, and I think just in the community. Um, I don't think they're fully aware that we
I
exist.
didn't know we
Like,
existed because
really?
of that. I
Me
thought
neither. Me
I
neither.
saw
That's the thing.
Jerry
Like, I
Springer
didn't know
show.
either.
I didn't know trans men were
hmm
even. I didn't even know that was a word. I thought they were. It was all about being about women. I didn't even know we existed until I saw Chaz Bono on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea that trans men existed. I remember seeing what's the movie with Hilary Swank? Boys Don't
Oh,
Cry.
yeah, yeah. I saw that the other day.
And I think it was kind of like alluded,
Yeah,
like I think it was kind of vague if he was a trans man or
that was
not
a
in
trans
the
man.
movie.
He said, "I'm a
Yeah,
boy.
yeah. So
I'm
he was, I
not
mean,
a
we know he was a trans
lesbian.
man.
I'm a
We know,
boy."
yeah. But I remember around that, I was young. I was like a little kid. But I remember the conversation just that I was hearing about it was like that was a
Yeah.
lesbian, it was a woman. Like it you know, it wasn't clear that he was that character was a trans
Well, the
man.
first time I saw it, I
And
thought that
then,
was, I did not sure what I thought he was, but I
mm,
saw the movie, but this was before I even knew what I was. So I didn't even connect the
hmm
dots that that was a trans
yeah,
man until I saw that movie after I started transitioning. Then I realized the keywords that was coming
yeah,
out of his mouth, but they didn't
hmm
say transgender or transsexual. They
exactly,
didn't say that, so I didn't know.
yeah. Mhm. So like I knew that trans women existed. I didn't know that trans men existed. And I didn't even really know that like really butch women existed or like studs. I didn't even know any of that
Wow.
until like I saw them. Because I was a kid, I didn't even see any of that, you know? And then like the most masculine representation of women that I saw was like Queen Latifah and Set It
Yeah,
Off.
I love that movie.
Me too, me too. And I remember like as a young kid thinking like, oh yeah, like I like her style. I like this. And so I just think one of the things that's important about where we're at now with there just being more trans visibility, period, and more people talking about trans issues. I think there's opportunities to elevate trans, like Black trans men's
Mhm.
stories. And I think that support has got to be from our
Yeah,
own because the other
we're
folks
gonna
just
have to
don't
grow it.
support Black people,
We're gonna have to
you
take the
know.
bull by the horns and do it just like we do as Black people in general. We are shunned
Right.
out of the media as well. So it's no surprise to
Mm-hmm.
me that we are really under the bus when we as a people are already under the bus in the, because who owns the
Yeah.
media? Who owns this platform?
Mm-hmm.
Who owns everything
Right.
that goes on
Right.
with the media nationwide, worldwide? Well, maybe I won't say worldwide, but
Right.
I'll say in the United States. It ain't Black people.
Yeah, it's
So
white
we have
people.
to make our own, we got to make it happen, and even if it has to
And
start
I think there
small
needs to
like
be
this.
like right, but like including and supporting each other as Black people, as Black trans people, um, supporting each other. I think is also important. And supporting accountability with each other, but also uplifting each
Yes.
other. Because at the end of the day, we all we got. Like, yes, you know, a collective trans movement for liberation and stuff, but who gets left behind in that is the Black trans
Yep.
people. So I think Black trans people, we gotta be the first ones to support us and not hope for. I mean, we can hope that other people will also support, but not like require, not like depend on it. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Well, we can't depend on
Yeah.
anybody but ourselves. So it's
Mhm.
just time. For me, it was like, okay, it's time to make a move in that
Right.
direction, to support one another,
Yeah.
even if it's on a small scale like this. Um,
Mhm.
it's a start. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. And I also want to be a part of this because you were bringing together Black trans men of different ages, and of different journeys and from around the country.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly. I didn't want to be
you
just
know,
about
mm,
me and my little
right.
community and blah 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 blah. I've always wanted to
Mm-hmm.
grow a national conversation about who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Just when, because I was part of the LGB community, full out, full hog. I was in the Bay Area when Stonewall was going on in New York, and I was part of that fight to gain visibility for the LGB community in the 1970s. So all I'm doing is
Mm-hmm.
bringing that kind of energy to the transgender community because we need to be part of this conversation and this movement. So if we want people to know us, to be visible, we got to step out there somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
So, I appreciate you coming on and, willing to share some of your story with us. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this topic? About yourself or even your own story?
My own story. Um, I mean, yeah, I could share a little bit about my story. So I'm 27, so I'm pretty young. Um, and yeah, like I said, I didn't know that trans men existed. I had no idea whatsoever.
How'd you find
When
out?
I was in high school,
How'd you find out? How'd you figure it out?
um, so it would actually, I was in college and I did a drag show. Um, and so that was the first time I was ever like binding, and I liked it, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this? Like, what am I doing?" And I really credit social media, Tumblr. I started seeing pictures of um, like people like a sort of dapper masculinity and people assigned female at birth, like from like the 20s and 30s, and like the way they were dressing in these suits, and I was like, "Whoa, like what is this? Like this is awesome." So I started trying to embody that and started wearing ties a lot and loved it. And then I came across this book called Genderqueer, and it was like a bunch of essays. And I was reading one by this, it was written by this femme, like lesbian or queer woman, and she was talking about her partner, and she was talking about her partner was transitioning. And the ways that she talked about her partner's feelings, I was like, oh, that's what this is. And similar to the brother before, I also identified as genderqueer for a while because I was a feminist and I was like, I hate men, so I'm not a man. Um, and genderqueer felt close enough to masculinity. But the more I was around trans men and trans masculine people, the more I couldn't fight it anymore. I couldn't say, okay, I don't want to do this until I started hormones. And I started using he pronouns, and it felt really good. I was like, oh, okay, fine. Like, this is really me. Um, and it's been nice to, as I get more comfortable in my body and my transition, like, I realize I'm a really, I get to create my own kind of masculinity, so I feel more free to explore feminine things now because I don't have to, I just choose to. It's not a pressure anymore. And it feels nice to be cultivating my own tender masculinity.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, that's me.
All right, man. Glad I reached out to you so you can jump on here and be part of this more of a national movement than I've ever seen exposed on this platform. It's usually
Mm-hmm.
refined to particular organizations, particular groups in individual cities, and nobody was really willing to take on just any and everybody, no matter where they were in this country, without being part of an organization. So I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that should be
Mm-hmm.
the only place that we are heard and that we are seen and that, come join us and then we'll make you famous kind of thing. I'm not from that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
that's getting us anywhere. So, so yeah,
Right.
I appreciate you definitely coming on um, and sharing a bit of
Mm-hmm.
yourself with me, and perhaps all of us together can do another live sometime.
Yeah, I'd be down. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, sir. So I just saw a couple of messages down here. I don't know how to get. Oh, have you left? You have a good night, Jaden.
Bye.
Bye. I don't know how to get these guys out of here. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, I need to undo my speakers here because the other gentleman. Uh-oh.
I'm driving right now, and I will be available in 3 hours.
What? 2 hours? Did he say 3 hours? 2 hours.
Sounded like 3.
3 hours? Oh no, this is gonna end before 3 hours, brother. So, yeah, that's, I think, our last caller. Is there anybody, hey, is there anybody that said anything pretty cool that I might be able to pull in here?
No.
Is there anybody, hey, Miss Wanda, would you like to come in here? Would you? I'm looking. Is he gonna be shy tonight? Mr. Ty, would you like to say something, sir? I don't even know if I can. I didn't get a. What she say?
She said she was drunk. Boy, I'm drunk.
Oh no, we ain't bringing you in here with your drunk ass. Hey, Miss Blossom, how about you, lady? Uh-oh, I can't bring you in. I don't know why. Maybe I can only do... Yeah, I don't know how to send you an invite, Blossom. I can, hold on, let me try something here with you. I saw this lady, on a show that I met Shaw on. I'm not sure what's going on, Miss Blossom, because...
She said she's on her cell. I don't know if that makes a difference.
No, it doesn't make a difference. Let me see if I can get to this live. Hold on and see if I can invite you that way. I doubt it because I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to lives on this computer. Yeah, I haven't sent you one because I can't figure out a way to you're not showing up in green, and I don't know why. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Wait a minute. She just showed up in green. Yeah, see, I would have to, I'm not sure how come I'm not seeing you, Blossom. You, all I can do is, can you send me an invite? The only ones I can seem to bring in here, and our last gentleman is delayed in his car, And yeah. So there are any other trans men who would like to be brought in on this into this live to say your piece about trans men in the media, why we are, why we're not. I really think the I hate using this word, but it's actually very, very real in America, and that is the racial division that is going on within the transgender community. The oppression that is going on in the cisgender, heterosexual, right and left of the United States is also very, very, very deeply embedded in the transgender community. The first time I spoke, I did so at a Thea conference, who was actually put on. The head of that conference was a cross-dresser who had a lot of money. And I went to a dinner on Saturday night where I never seen so much. I did not know there was so much money in the transgender community that was flying. Thousands, double-digit thousands of dollars were being contributed and donated to other white transgender people. That just does not happen in the black transgender community. We don't see that kind of money floating around because we don't. I'm not going to say all, because there are some transgender men and women who are doing very, very well in society, but the majority are not. And we don't go to functions and see that kind of money being thrown around the transgender community unless it's the white one. And they don't contribute to us at all. We just kind of get waylaid, bypassed. So yeah, I didn't, when I announced this live, I did not mention that it would be an all-black panel of men, and I did that for a reason, for the reason I just stated, that, you know, we don't get the space, the same kind of space, the same amount of space as non-black transgender men and women in this country. So I did not want to make it seem like I was anti-white, because I'm not. There may become a time when I will bring on non-black trans men into lives with me, because I do have some allies who are white. But generally speaking, y'all have a space, and y'all have a platform, and y'all have access to resources we don't have. I see it all day, every day. The amount of money that is being spent for the white transgender community, as far as the binder manufacturer, the packer manufacturers, third-party resellers, all sorts of people that are making products for trans men are not black, or people of color for that matter. So I'm also trying to bridge that gap on my own with a particular manufacturer here on this platform. Occasionally I promote their products, but I'm trying to figure out a way to make it where it's more cost effective, not only for them, but for the black or the POC community in the United States. Because we economically are not on the same level in this country. We never have been. I personally have been, but it was long before I started to transition. You know, I am a retired ex-software consultant who was making six figures before my career ended. So I would have been able to afford all this stuff and then some, and then helped other people. But I did not know at the time that I was transgender. So I didn't, you know, Then my career ended. I became disabled. I live on a fixed income, and right now I can't even afford to get my car fixed, let alone help other people. But I am trying to start a business just for us, just for black transgender men, black transgender women, although they're not on the forefront of this business. It's going to be black transgender men. And then we're going to pull in black cisgender people into the organization that I'm trying to start. I let it die. I actually killed it until I'm sure I can make it a business. Otherwise, it was wasting my time, where I had to be the almost like the entertainment section of that group, instead of people collaborating and participating in the activities that I was creating in that group, which was about our history, which was about feel-good moments. It was also about current events. It was also about what's going on in the United States when it comes to black people. I have taken to calling them Moors, but it's going to be very difficult for me to switch from saying more people or Moors, because people don't understand that word yet. Moors is our ancient language, our ancient name. Before we were brought to the United States, we were Moors. Before we were all these other names that keep getting changed every few decades. Negro, Black, African American, Pan-African, whatever, there's lots of names. But before we were brought here, we were called Moors. Moors, if anybody want to research and look that up. Are you around? Oh, Blossom. Here she go. I don't know how she turned herself green, but I'm bringing you in, baby. For Blossom.
Oh my gosh, Ray, how are
Hey,
you?
honey, how you doing?
I'm good. No way. I didn't even think it was gonna work.
I don't know what you did, how you ended up turning yourself green, but the minute I saw you, I put you in here.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think there's a delay in here.
It's okay.
There's like a 5-second delay. Like I'm hearing what you previously said.
Oh, sorry about that. So what would you like to, are you surprised that this actually happened? And what would you like to add to the conversation of trans men in the media?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this space. I know this space is very sacred and it's definitely for trans men, which is great because there's not many spaces for trans men. There's a delay in this.
Didn't we have problems on your other one where you were delayed or something was going on with your phone?
I don't know what it is, but it's. Hold on. Hold on. Can you hear
Yeah, I
me?
can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now the delay is gone. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me into this space because, again, I know it's very sacred, especially for trans men, black trans men, that is. Kind of going into like dealing with trans men in the media, I do think that there needs to be much more awareness of that. Um, I think there's such a lot of ignorance, and there's just not a lot of spaces for black trans men. And as someone who is part-time entertainment and like part-time like in the health field, nonprofit, industrial complex, or whatever you want to call it, like I definitely can feel those different things. I can say as a black trans woman, because of my privilege, I've been able to access a lot of different resources. I definitely have the keys to many doors, and in a lot of these spaces, I see that there's things missing, but because of being so complicit and because you're usually the loner and you don't know what to do, you don't really say anything. And so I even came under scrutiny about a year ago about this, and I had to make a whole video to clear this up about like the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing or whatnot. Because, I was in her show in season 1. I was the girl that she helped, the black trans woman, yada, yada, yada. But then because of things such as white privilege and all these other different intersectionalities, I didn't say anything and then came under fire for it. So going back to like what trans men, I do think that there definitely needs to be a space for them, and I actually want to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem, because when you don't say anything, when you have privilege and when you have resources, you're the problem.
Yeah.
You're part of the problem, and you need to become part of the solution.
I've seen trans women, many trans women, black, white, POC, whatever. They just don't, we don't have the same access to resources as you ladies do. And we're not getting any from you. So we're trying to figure out how to get resources for ourselves, for us to be on an equal playing field with transgender women.
Yeah, and even in like nonprofit work, I'm definitely finding it very difficult, because like we could talk about trans men being in the space, but when you don't actually have representation of it there, like you don't, like, I'm sorry, I'm trans and I don't know what the hell are the needs of trans men. I'm sorry, I don't know. And I do think that the only ones that do know are trans men. So what is wrong with having them in these spaces? And a lot of times, because of heterosis normativity, a lot of that takes over and they become those voices for those groups, like what you and I are or whatnot. And so that's not right and it's not fair. And so, I've really had to reevaluate what I am able to do. And I feel like I'm ready to like become part of the solution. So anything that I could do, Ray, to like help you out, because I know that you just said like you're starting your business and you want to do it for like trans men. If I have any resources or anything like that I can help you with, I'm totally down to help. Like,
Oh,
it's
bless
all
you.
good.
Thank you. We can talk about that
Right?
offline.
Yeah, because you came on our show many weeks back, and you and Jaden, y'all were such powerful voices, and we were so glad to have you in that conversation. So, again, anything that I could do, just let me know.
Appreciate that so much, Blossom.
Of course.
Are you having a good Sunday?
Yeah, I'm actually here in Oakland. I live in LA, but I'm here in Oakland for the weekend, just hanging out, and it's been fun. It's been fun.
My old
and
stomping
I'm
grounds,
always talking to you, Ray. Huh?
I lived in the Bay Area for almost 19 years.
Really?
Sure did.
Yeah, I could visit the Bay. I don't want to live in the Bay because it's just too cold up here.
Yeah, it is cold.
But yeah.
Well, I lived in
but yeah,
San Jose. I lived in Menlo Park, and then I started moving south. So I was smack in the middle, and I got away from the San Francisco bad weather. All you had to do was go about 10, 20 miles south, and the weather was different down there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then I'm from Mississippi, so I'm used to 4 seasons, and there's only like 2 seasons in California, I think.
Maybe.
So it's just like maybe 3. I don't know. Yeah, it's just it's crazy. But again, Ray, thank you so much for like what you are doing. Like, I even watch your YouTube channel and what you are really just trying to do, especially for like Black trans men. Like, I think that's just awesome. And because of things such as anti-Blackness, it's very important that we do keep that conversation going.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it started. I'm trying to fire people up, but people are afraid, and I see that they're afraid, and they don't want to jeopardize their jobs. They don't want to jeopardize this. They don't want to jeopardize that. And I'm just one of those guys that I don't give shit, and I'm gonna be transparent regardless of what it's gonna cost me, because that if everybody worries about what it's gonna cost them, ain't nothing gonna ever change. I gotta take
and
risk.
there are many. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you're not the only one. There's many trans activists who are trans men or trans masculine, like they're doing the damn thing. They're doing the work, and they're really sweating blood and tears just to get the work done, and yet they're not heard.
Well, I think they're not heard because they're Black.
If
they talk about this stuff with me, I have tried to engage those very activists to talk about what it is to be a Black transgender man or woman. They don't want to talk about that part. They just want to deal with the transition part. So that's why I'm loud, very loud about the Black.
Yeah, Absolutely, but you know what, Ray? You have to understand something as well too, and this is what I also had to understand. A lot of these types of conversations are so slow in the Black community. There was this video the other day where they were talking about GNC and non-binary people, and these were Black people having a conversation, and I was just so disturbed by the way that it went, because
Mhm.
I could see like the generation gap of like older trans people having this opinion, and then like the younger millennial trans folks having this opinion. And of course, I'm a millennial, so I see it that way. And I'm trying to understand the ideology of like what older trans people are thinking. So it's just, it's very interesting. And, we have to figure out how do we really combat those types of conversations in the Black trans community without having to feel so uncomfortable. Like, we have to get out of that state of
Got to get
uncomfortability.
out of the comfort
And how
zone.
to do that.
You think it's easy for me to make those vlogs that I make? It's not as easy as it looks. I am uncomfortable when I'm making them because I'm making myself a
Yes.
target to people who would judge me because I am pushing their fragility buttons.
Yes.
It is not easy to stand alone in talking about being Black and transgender. I'm not welcome in the Black cisgender spaces that are on this platform, and I'm not really open. Doors aren't really open for me talking about it in transgender groups if there are non-Black people in them. They're fragile. So we got Black people that are fragile about it in the cisgender community, heterosexual cisgender community, and then we got white people that are fragile about it in the transgender community. So it's very, very, this is not an easy thing for me to do. It really isn't. And I'm doing it.
And that's why I give you like so much credit. Like, your voice is definitely needed, Ray. And again, anything that I could do to help, like, I got you. Like, we're all down for helping our trans brothers. Like, I think sometimes when us as trans women are in a lot of these spaces, it's not that we forget about our trans brothers. It's just that we don't speak for that experience.
Yes, ma'am.
But if we at least acknowledge it or whatever, sorry, it's a little hot in here. Sorry.
Are you having a
if we
flash?
acknowledge it, yeah, like, it's so hot. But if we at least, maybe I can go get some sunlight. But if we at least acknowledge that this is what's happening, it'll at least, I feel, make it better.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's just it's just a very interesting conversation.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna have more.
Now, Ray, ask me my opinion on some things. You got any questions for me? Ask me my opinion. I got you.
Well,
throw it out there.
Yeah, when I saw you on The Girls Next Door, I wasn't sure who any of you ladies were, because the Shella is the one that found me, and then I had no idea there was this panel of ladies. Are you guys all friends and you hang together and that's your connection?
Yeah, we actually do. It's kind of like, I feel like we're on The View. Shayla's like
Seem like it.
Walters, and the girls are just doing it. And it's funny because I feel grateful to like even be a part of like that team. Like, I'm probably like the baby on that team or whatnot, but I love those girls. And it's funny because a lot of our opinions we don't agree on a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, we know we're sisters and we are doing a damn thing. And that's the thing, trans women, we are coming up. Like, it's like Black trans women, we are on the forefront, we're coming up, and that's great. And now we have to figure out, how do we bring everybody else up? Like,
well,
we now have to
brothers need to, the issues
that.
with the brothers, the trans men, is that they're too busy competing to collaborate. That's why I created.
Oh, that's in the trans women community too. Like, that's in the trans community in general.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to, definitely trans women, we could definitely be very competitive. It's funny because I got into it with this woman by the name of Frenchie Davis, and she tried to kind of come for trans women. There was this author who came out with this article about trans women who had male privilege prior to transition.
Right.
And which is totally false. It was totally false. And it's funny because me and Frenchie have actually worked together before. We spoke at the same LGBT HBCU conference that the Human Rights Campaign puts on. And I admired her. And I thought that she was such a strong, powerful Black woman. But then for her to co-sign what that author said on Twitter, it bothered me. And so I actually went for Frenchie on Twitter, and me and her we had a couple of words, but we ended up working it out. But she brought up the point of trans women and dealing with biphobia. Yeah, trans women can be biphobic.
What's biphobic?
We can also be. Yeah, we could be biphobic, and like any group of people can be biphobic. And so we ended up in this conversation where like some cis women can be transphobic and some trans women can be biphobic.
Oh, okay.
It is what it is. Like, and
well, you know what?
Sometimes it's about
the argument of privilege in the
ground.
Black community doesn't exist. All that privilege is over there in the white community.
Yeah, it is, but there are some of us who navigate through white heterosis norms.
I've done it.
There are many of us who navigate through like the white cis community quite well. I'm one of those people where I had a lot of white friends. I really didn't have a lot of like Black friends or whatever, so I was able to kind of navigate through there just by being a Black trans woman. Although I didn't have like this powerful voice, because I knew if I would have spoken up, that a lot of these spaces that I had squirmed my way into would be taken away from me. That's just how it works. And so I learned how to keep quiet on many things, but you also gain being complicit, and then it's going to become problematic. And so I was having to deal with that. And so there are some of us in the Black community who can do more. Some of us can do more than others. Here's the thing, Ray. You could say something, a certain topic about trans men, and people watch your videos and stuff, and nobody wants to may not want to follow up after that. I made a post about trans men, I think on Facebook or Instagram. No more than about an hour later, I got requested in my inbox to do a radio interview about the topic.
Wow.
Like, it's interesting how I can get those things, but then somebody who actually lives the experience
couldn't,
who actually goes through it, like nobody wants to reach out to them and just like have that conversation, have that one-on-one conversation and dive in.
Why do you think that is?
So
why do you think that is? That's like asking a white person a Black person's experience. How are you going to be speaking on a trans man experience when you're a trans woman?
Exactly. And that's what I've been saying. I will say lately it has been a battle. I find myself kind of duking it out with certain people, because it's like, you don't speak for this group of people. I'm sorry. Like we brought like, we're trying to plan a couple of different things or whatnot. And so.
Well, you can always send them my way.
Yeah, definitely. Like just working with people and kind of understanding like their mentality about trans men, it kind of disgusts me a little bit, because I would expect more. But again, do you hold that against them, or do you find people who are willing to educate them? But then again, when you have educated people over and over and over again, like you're ready to move past that.
You get burnt out.
I know, Ray, you're definitely one of those people who have been burnt out and are ready to move past it. And so that's why I respect you and like Jaden and so many Black trans men in this community who are doing a damn thing, who speak up or whatnot, but don't always get that shine that you deserve. And it's not necessarily about the shine per se, but it's about people hearing, like that domino effect of people hearing and understanding the experience. That's what I mean by shine.
Yeah, I want to educate. I want to educate the community, that the country, that we're here. And although I've had a YouTube channel since 2010, and I started making vlogs in 2016, I can post that thing into probably 60 groups of mixed race people,
Mm-hmm.
and I only get a few views. That's
Yeah,
telling me something. They don't want to, they're not trying to hear it. But I'm still
they're
going to
not.
be a blowhorn until the day I die. I don't care. I'm 60 years old. I have better things to do and I'm tired. But I'd rather stand for something than lay down and let the entire country walk all over us. I'm just not
Absolutely.
about that life. Um,
And that's good. That's good. And I think that's very inspiring. And I think that's going to inspire so many other people to like get out there and do all of it and just kick ass with
I
it.
hope.
Like, you know, like,
Thank you, man.
you know, I just, it's I respect you, Ray. I just respect you. I respect you, you know, and thank you for just being like that voice. You know, it's definitely helped evolve a lot of my thinking and the way I used to think about stuff, you know. And so again, thank you, Ray, for being a part of
Wow,
this.
I didn't even know you watched my vlogs. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Like we can't bring somebody on the show and not follow up with them, you know, and so, you know, it was really a great thing that like Shayla and the rest of the girls kind of like just brought you on and we really just kind of stepped into what a black trans man has to say because oftentimes I know living here in California, like the black community has to really navigate through other groups to even be kind of like heard. Like we don't really have like a lot of black organizations that focus just on us. We don't
None.
really have a lot of those spaces, and we really have to break through for those spaces. And it's funny because even going into like dealing with anti-blackness or whatever, having to deal with colorism. Yes, I am a lighter skinned black person. I know that I have benefited off of many other things than my darker skin trans brothers and sisters have dealt with. I understand that. I've benefited from it. And it's interesting when you're on this side of the fence and everybody else is over here.
Mhm.
And so I feel like being able to talk about these different
Right.
layers, you know, it's definitely going to just open that floodgate and just really figure out like how do we combat these different issues, you know, how can we voice our opinions and what can we do to just really be a good
Well, you know
resource.
what?
So
I joined the NAACP, and I'm also thinking about joining another group of people and another one down here in the area that I live in Atlanta, and let them get to know me. Let them get to know my personality and know that I'm a good person, and then I'm going to spring it on them that I'm transgender. And what can they do to help our cause too if I'm going to help their cause? Because I'll bounce on them in a heartbeat. I don't care,
yes,
you know, but they're going to know sooner or later that I'm not just this cis guy sitting in these meetings with them, but they're going to get to know it through my personality, not because I put transgender on my forehead and moving
yeah,
around in the cisgender community, because I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it, but I'm still going to put myself out there eventually to see what these organizations, where they really stand on bringing visibility to the transgender community, to the cisgender black community, politically.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And we can go on and on
Yeah,
about like conversations within the black community or what, especially dealing with like, uh, again, anti-blackness, how because of trauma I may have experienced at the hands of black hetero men, how if I'm walking down the street and I see a group of black men standing there, I'll walk literally to the other side because of like the verbal harassment, the mental and emotional abuse that could become after that, like a physical abuse as well. And so it's just yeah, I'm a girl, like I go there. I'm just one of those girls, like I just go there
well,
because
it's
it's
happened to
happened.
me before too, but I'm just so ornery that I don't get. I've been harassed before I transitioned like that. Cat calls in
Yeah.
the military with a line of men going down the left, a line of men going down the right, and I had to walk down the middle to get in the club and had them doing that number to me. But you know what I did as I was walking down the sidewalk?
What's that?
But see, that's just my kind of personality. I did not.
Yeah.
It didn't intimidate me, and it should have. I'm a little bitty man. People don't know that. They think I'm very tall, but I'm not. I'm a small man, and but I just have a big. I don't know where I got all the courage that I have, and but it's there. So
Yeah.
it doesn't
It's
matter.
funny because you're a little man. I'm 6'3". Like I'm tall.
I'm
I'm an
5'5".
Amazon. Yeah, I'm a big old Amazon. It's crazy. It's just so really crazy, and I think it's a good idea that you're talking about the NAACP. You know, I question sometimes what are Black organizations doing for us as trans people. You know, where are y'all? Like, it's interesting how, and I probably will get a lot of flack for this, and I think I'm going to step in a little bit into social justice right quick. And I don't mean to divert the whole conversation, Ray, but it's just interesting how when a Black man, a Black straight man is murdered in this country by police, and we all have to come together and say, you know, Black Lives Matter, which is fine. We stand with our brothers. That's good. But when a Black trans woman is killed, where are those trans
Hush.
people? Hush.
They don't care.
Do you say her name? No, you don't say. Like, that bothered me. That bothered me. And I don't know if I had this conversation with Patrice from Black Lives Matter because I protested with her before or whatever. But it's just it's an interesting dialogue that just needs to happen.
Well, that's why I'm infiltrating. I'm infiltrating all them groups, including the Black Lives Matter movement down here. I'm infiltrating.
Good.
But see, it's a safety issue for me to disclose without friends or other people around me while I'm in those spaces. So I'm very observant right now, but it's a matter of me feeling safe and having other transgender brothers and sisters with me. And nobody has been willing to do that. And we dominate this city. So it's very interesting to me that the Black transgender community wants to just stay trans. They don't want to deal with this Black part. So they won't come with me to those kinds of meetings because they're safe over here on the trans thing and not on the Black part. So I'm finding myself in a very, well, I've been in this place before, but it's a little frustrating because, you know, we need to deal with the social issues is the reason why there's the economic issues is the reason why there is all this ignorance around us is the reason why we're not being heard because we're not collaborating.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a lot of this intertwines together. All of that definitely does. And it's just kind of like we're at this point now where what now? What can we do now to bring everybody together? Because again, like what you were saying earlier, competing and all these different things, like how do we stop the competing and just learn to collaborate and put resources together to make it bigger, to make it stronger, to make those voices much more heard? You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been in spaces where I have heard our Black trans brothers like practically cry, shout, protest. And it does something to me because I know that I'm one of those people who can help do better by supporting whatever I could do. And I think that's my conscious kind of feeling guilty a little bit because when you're giving, when things are given to you and they've just fallen to your lap, but you know you're not the type of person that you don't look down on other people. You've always known what it's like to have nothing. And then one day you wake up and then you have many things. And you know you need to pass the torch on because you're chosen or whatever you want to call it. But then how do you do it?
Carefully.
And then and I always make this point too, that no matter what level you are in your activism, me going out and preaching something doesn't make anybody else who goes out and preach the same thing invalid. They are just as valid as I am.
Right.
They just are. It doesn't matter how small it is that you're doing, whether you're going to classroom speaking, whether you're going, whether you're creating workshops, whatever it is that you're doing, it is valid. It is so valid. And we have to make sure that we're talking about that and acknowledging that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
We'll get it done. You know, I think the time is now. I think there's a silver lining in all the bullshit that's going on in this country, and that it's been a one big fat wake-up call that
Yes.
everybody needs to figure out a way to unite and collaborate again, because it just, yeah, that's the silver lining in Mr. Cheeto Orange Face in Washington, causing this whole country to go crazy, is that it's a big old wake-up call to us that we need to tighten up. We just need to tighten up.
Absolutely. And it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. You know, we just got to get through the storm.
Yes,
first.
ma'am. Eye of the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
We're smack in the middle of it. And guess what? I'm part of that hurricane. I'm coming.
Love it. I love it. Thank you, Ray, for having me on.
Thank you, ma'am.
And again, thank you so much for just inviting me into your very sacred space. I think it's great that you're giving trans men a voice and doing everything. And again, anything that I could do to be like a resource or whatever, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you very much, Blossom. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome, Ray.
Wonderful rest of your weekend.
We'll talk soon.
Yep.
You too.
Sha, are you in the building, Sha? Are you still on the road, ma'am? Okay, so yeah, I'll just talk a little while longer to see if he actually gets to where he was going. But I am of the belief that these things are intertwined and they cannot be separated. That the issue of being a black trans man is very precarious in this country. The pushback to keep us oppressed is the reason why I do what I do. It's the reason why I make vlogs on YouTube. Is the reason why I put so much activity on my timeline, because I don't believe in playing it safe and just being all about my transition. But I see too many are. That's all they're about. When it comes to trans men, they're just about their binders. They're just about their packers. They're just about surgeries. They're just about the physical characteristics that they gain being on testosterone. And they're don't seem to be reaching outside of that box, except within the non-black, non-POC circles. I see that going on over there, but I still don't see them uplifting each other, because they're already uplifted. We're the ones who aren't uplifted, and they don't seem to care. So my whole aim and goal in life really is to uplift my people. Because we are not uplifted. We're not uplifted economically. We're not uplifted spiritually. We're just not uplifted in this society. Somebody's got to do it. So, without any resource whatsoever on my side, I'm still willing to be that voice to make that happen. Who we got over here? Son, are you willing to come? Are you in this live? You know who I'm talking to, because you're trying to talk to me in a chat window. Are you in here? I'm going to bring this boy in here, okay? Hold on. Okay, I'm also I'm an international mentor. I mentor men and women around the globe, And I have many children who've chosen me to be their father, their daddy, their pops, some people's uncle, some people's big bro, whatever. And so I have a lot of sons, and I have some daughters. Who is this? Yeah, we'll see who's... Draven, get in here, boy. Don't be sitting on the fringes, scared to speak up. Here's your chance. So yeah, if there's any way I can be that bridge, that go between our community and the non-black community, then that's what I intend to do. I'm not a subservient. I am an alpha male, and as such, I'm not likely to be subservient about any of this to anybody. I'm not going to be cognizant of your fragility zones. I'm just not. People who have been watching me on my timeline know that. So, but that still doesn't mean I can't be effective if doors open and I find doors to open and I step through them. I won't step through them like NFL players. I don't get paid millions of dollars to be abused by any assholes out there. Even if I did, I doubt that I would be that kind of man. I'd be another Cohen. I'd risk it all for what I believe in. And so, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's coming up on 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have not seen my other cohort that was going to be in this live, but maybe he'll be in the next one. We could talk about that. I don't know when that will be, but thank you very much for being a part of this conversation, for watching this conversation, I know that I did not pay much attention to the comments while we were talking because we had, quite a few men to get through. And then I saw Blossom, who is a really nice lady, and thought that since they had me on their show, I could have her on mine. So everybody have a wonderful rest of your night, and Ray Gibson is out.